I'm Chip Freund, and this is the Artist Spotlight, conversations with contemporary artists based on 5 simple questions that explore the artist's journey, creativity, and sources of inspiration. Welcome to another episode of the Artist Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Chip Freund, and today I'm joined by Susan Hensel. Susan is an award-winning, multidisciplinary artist based in Minneapolis. Her recent innovative fiber art work blends commercial embroidery processes with sculptural concerns, and it's gaining attraction. I'm looking forward to learning more about it. Susan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chip. Glad to be here. It's cold and sunny here in Minneapolis. How is it there in North Carolina?
It is warm and sunny, a little bit hazy today, thanks to both a thin layer of clouds and plenty of pollen out there.
We just have the mold.
Season. Tis the season.
And this is our mold season.
So,
yeah.
If we have one, ours is fall because you have the leaf mold and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like to have each of the artists that come on do is to sort of level set the audience on what you're currently up to. You've got a big project, maybe you're just starting, just finishing, something that's kind of consuming your art life.
Well, given that I am recovering from a complex broken leg and still confined to a wheelchair, my day is broken up with physical therapy. So I'm not standing yet, which you have to do with sculpture. But what I am working on is a series of little accordion books, because that's a size I can work with from the wheelchair. And I can't not make art. And so they all have something to do with what my body is going through, but they're also very beautiful. And once I can stand up, I will make covers for them. And I will get back to what was on the table the day I fell, which was, I think, 2 different sculptures that I was waiting for some maple wood to come in that would be part of at least one of them. And it came, but I haven't unwrapped it yet. So that's where I'm at.
All right. So what's the prognosis look like? How quickly will you be back at work in full form?
Starting tomorrow, I get to put a tiny bit of weight on that broken leg. Now, I don't know what that means yet. We'll see. But over the course of about 4 weeks, I should be up to 100% weight. And then it's just a matter of getting strong again. Because even without a cast, because I've just been kind of loose in a wheelchair, even without a cast, you atrophy just amazingly. I have a stick leg.
Yeah. And
I thought maybe if I didn't have a cast, that wouldn't be as dramatic. No. Still pretty dramatic.
It's the ultimate use it or lose it. My wife had knee surgery a few years back, and she was 0 weight bearing for, I think it was 4 weeks.
And then 6.
Or maybe it could have even been as many as 6. I don't recall. But then 25% weight bearing. And she's like, how do you figure out what 25% is?
I don't know. I don't know. I looked up on YouTube, and in Germany, they this guy who spoke English beautifully had been off his feet with the similar kind of thing for 6 weeks, and he really hadn't touched his toe down. And so they had him stand on the good leg on a set of books and the bad leg on a scale, and then he had to tip back and forth to figure out what was 50% on his right leg. And it was like, oh my gosh, that is not what we're going to do. I gather I'm going to get up in the walker and go, this feels weird. I think that's about all I'm going to get.
Well, I hope the recovery goes as smoothly and quickly as it can.
Thank you. I hope so too. I'm a darn good patient.
That's key. Being a good patient and sticking to your PT is key to recovery.
I say this is the 4th time I've had to learn to walk. So, I think I kind of know about PT now.
All right.
Yeah, the first time was, of course, when I was 11 months old, but
it's been a lifelong practice for you.
It has been. It has.
So thinking of lifelong practices, what is your earliest memory of making art of any kind?
What I remember first that isn't just family stories about what Susie did to the walls. Um, what I what I remember first, our family had a year in California. My dad was a professor, and that was his first sabbatical. And we drove across the United States, and I was 4 going on 5, and each of us got a scrapbook to put postcards in and things. And it was lovely manila paper, which I loved to draw on. It has a beautiful tooth. And so I drew princesses all through it. And there were some postcards too, but that's what I really remember was drawing these princesses.
Hmm.
Yeah,
About what age was that, do you think?
I was about 4.5, 5 years old. Yeah, I was definitely beyond, the box with hands that a lot of 5-year-olds do. I've been driven since birth to make marks and messes. So
Not all. The parents may not think it was all that wonderful, but I say it's not a bad thing.
it's not a bad thing. No, no,
Um, so, as a multidisciplinary artist, you kind of play in a lot of different media.
I do.
Um, what media currently is really sort of grabbing your attention, and what is it about it that draws you in?
Well, the driver of what I'm doing now is the digital embroidery, and um, what you need to know about me. One of the reasons I'm multimedia is I'm trained as a sculptor, and when you're trained as a sculptor, you're trained in a lot of media, so they all just become tools. But I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I was at the Minnesota State Fair, and I decided to go to the demonstration building where they show off new inventions, whatever, the knives they want you to buy, the food storage systems, things like that. And I rounded a corner, and there was an embroidery machine stitching out a large Donald Duck. I didn't care about Donald Duck. I didn't care that the machine was hands free. What I cared about was the blue of his shirt. It was the most amazing blue I've ever seen in my life. I've thought of it ever since as an ultramarine blue.
Hmm.
And at that moment, I knew I was in trouble. I knew that I had to possess one of those machines and learn how to use it. I was not at all interested in putting images on sweatshirts and hats, which is what they're made for. But I could see by that color that it had tremendous potential to revolutionize my practice. And I spent a couple years seeking and getting one grant ultimately, and then I got the machine, and then I had to figure out how to make designs for it. And there was no training out there. The training from the machine companies was how to put Donald Duck on your shirt. It wasn't how to make Donald Duck. And so I struggled along. I got a grant to do a show using this process, and I felt like I completed the show by the skin of my teeth. It was so hard to get the gist of it because I did not come into digital embroidery with any understanding whatever of the structure of embroideries. Have I been a hand embroiderer? Oh, sure. I mean, most women my age have been. And I've worked in and around fibers in various ways. But I found on Craftsy, of all places, a reasonably good instructor who would respond to all of my questions. Like, what is an underlay? Why is it there? What happens if it's not there? And it turns out that making these designs is a little bit like Photoshop, a little bit like Adobe Illustrator. And it's not entirely straightforward to me, but I've always known Photoshop and Illustrator has always been a mystery to me.
Hmm.
But they all work in layers. And once I understood that, once that really clicked, then I knew how to experiment and find out what the color would do. And among the things I learned was that the thread is triangular in cross section, which means it acts kind of like a prism. And that's why that blue was so rich, because the light's bouncing in all different directions. Now, if it's just a blue thread, it's all going to be within the blue spectrum, but it's going to glimmer at you in a way that a cotton blue wouldn't, because the reflection off of a cotton is much too diffuse. This is
Mhm.
much more directed. And it was like, oh my goodness. So I started experimenting and discovered that by using that characteristic of the thread, by making gradients so that the threads are far apart, I could do combine colors to do optical mixing, and then putting on different substrates, different colors of felt would increase it. And then by folding it, you magnify it. So it suddenly became three-dimensional, which is where I was heading anyways. And the effect of the work is that as you walk by it, especially the folded pieces, it acts a little bit like those funky billboards from our youth called lenticular billboards,
Mhm.
where there'd be these slats on the
Yep.
billboard and there'd be one picture in one direction, the other picture in the other direction. It works a little bit like that, so that it is visually a little confusing, and it tends to stop people in their tracks trying to figure out how on earth that color happens. So that's what excited me.
I can see why, and it certainly comes through in your telling of it. It's I mean, we've all seen the commercially stitched, embroidered, logo shirts and
Yeah,
hats and all of that. But for you to sort of see that set of tools and components could generate something, that's a wonderful leap of creativity.
well, it's kind of how my brain works. Um, I mean, I'm like a crow, shiny, pretty, picking up things on my walks that I see potential in. So certainly I've done a lot of upcycling through my career, because I'll find something that's really cool, and what can I do with it? And so that mindset has really been with me almost as long as I can remember, maybe as long as I can remember. And I love tools. Oh my goodness, I love tools. And I love manipulating materials and finding out what they will do. And I've worked in computers since I was a teenager. I was terrible at it. I had to do punch cards. I never punched anything that ran, but I wasn't afraid of computers, so I didn't have to deal with that. Um, I was an early adopter of the Apple computer systems, but I did have to switch over to PC to do the embroidery, which was a little traumatic.
Oh.
So just saying. But I'm comfortable in that environment. And what you make in the computer is what gets output on the machine, sort of. But I it's never finished. I never get quite what I expect,
Hmm.
because you don't really know how the colors are going to interact in real time. On the computer screen, you can get an idea, and then I work in modules, and I begin putting them together until I have the completed piece. And the modules will run from maybe 11 inches from one machine. That's the largest it will go, like about 6 by 11. And then I bought a large commercial machine that has a 48-inch hoop. And so
Ooh.
those modules are fabulous. So yeah, I love everything about it, actually.
Yeah.
I lose time when I'm drawing in the computer, because that's really all it is. I'm drawing with stitches. It's it's no different than drawing, say, with a hard pen. You know,
Hmm.
you don't get um, you don't get the line modulation of a soft pencil, but otherwise it's just drawing. And I'm drawing with stitches, and I'm moving stitches around until I get something that I like the looks of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. I've seen your work online, and it is very striking. And I would never have thought that that was the tool set used to create it.
No, no one realizes it. no, but there's a richness to and a depth to the color. Even the piece behind me, which maybe will go up in the graphic, it is
Hmm.
not a folded piece, but because of the layering, you feel like you're looking through something that's very, very deep.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was anticipating that those pieces were at least creased or folded in some way, and they're not.
Well, the ones in the arch are creased. Those are just
Okay,
in
okay.
squares, and they are creased, and they were designed to be creased.
Yeah.
But the larger part of it that's down below the wood, it looks deep also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look at that. And
Yeah.
it's because of the contrast between the dark background, which was a deep, deep purple, and then color, the colors I put on top are just a gold and an aqua. I don't think there's anything else, but by doing them in layers, you change the saturation somewhat, and
Hmm.
it begins to look really, really deep as you
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool
Interesting.
stuff. I love it.
Well, very cool.
Yeah.
So what inspires your art? Where does it come from?
Well, it comes from the absolute um, bottom line need to make stuff, really.
Hmm.
And it is a form of play when I'm actually in the creation process, because not everything's play. We know that. There's hard work in all of this
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But what drives me with what I'm working on these days is actually it is the color, but in the back of my mind, what I'm thinking about are environmental stresses, especially in water, and so that's why you're seeing so much blue. And so a lot of these newer pieces do have to do with trying to create a world where um, where we can actually continue to live. I mean, it's like the planet will survive us no matter what we do, but how can we survive longer on the planet? And so it's a kind of a dreaming into a
Hmm.
better way of living. So that's kind of where the thought process is. The images are not necessarily, but when combined with the titles, you begin to get that sense. The piece on the screen now is called Firmament. So it was just thinking about looking up at the sky, which is of course where the rain comes from. And I've got a series of pieces that are even more multimedia with walnut, which is my favorite wood,
Hmm.
that are called wayfinding devices because we humans, we need a little help. We need our tools. And so the idea is, in theory, you could hold these up like a sextant out on the ocean or like a marine compass, which my dad always wished he had as I look at the water in your background.
Hmm.
My dad was a sailor, and I don't think he ever got the compass on a gimbal, but he
Hmm.
always wanted one. So thinking about those devices that we use to try to find our way. And so there's a series of them that are all part of this same series. They're called wayfinding devices, which are totally imaginary, but it's kind of like, whoa, if I could just hold this up to look at the sky, maybe I wouldn't screw up as much.
Oh, I love the conceptualness as well as the playfulness of it. Like you said, it is play.
It is. It is. And sometimes they come out on a machine and I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I look at it and I go, well, that really stinks. I'll just put that away for a while. And then I'll bring them out later and start cutting them up, folding them, wrapping them around things, just trying to figure out where they go. Because I have an idea going in, but it's rarely what I get at the other end.
Mhm.
So there's creation all the way along the
Yeah.
process.
Uh, a number of artists I've spoken to, particularly sculptors, often the materials themselves inform how it goes together. That
Yep,
it sort of the a wood turner friend of mine says the wood tells me what it wants to be.
yep, yep. And this is kind of what happens here. And maybe that's just part of the sculptor mindset. Because even my drawings, I draw as though I'm sculpting. I don't just draw an outline and then fill it in. I go, oh, well, this is round over here, and this goes straight up there, and eventually the two parts will join. but it's like sculpting almost. So I think it is kind of how my brain's wired.
Do you do sort of a conceptual sketch first, or is it?
Sometimes, but mostly those sketches are just to remember the ideas. Now, when I was a very young artist, I used to draw out every step. I'd have it to scale. I would know how much material it would take and all of that. And I don't do that anymore. And I don't know if that's a deficit of age or if it's an ease with materials. I like to think it's an ease with materials. Might be a deficit of age, you never know. But I'm so at ease with my materials and my processes that when I'm engaged in them, I I don't really have a lot of doubts about what the next step is.
Hmm.
And if I do, I just stop and I go work on something else because I'm I never have just one piece going ever. So I work until I need to stop because I don't know. And then I work on another piece and I come back. And there are tricks for figuring out what your next step is too that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
very useful. So
What advice would you give to an artist just starting out? It could be a young artist or somebody like me who is an encore career artist. But
yeah,
what advice would you give?
show up, make a mark, make another mark, whatever that looks like for you. Take it seriously. What you do is important. Whether you sell it or not doesn't matter. Human beings have been making marks on objects and surfaces around them since probably before we could talk.
Hmm.
And it's part of being human, and it's an important part of being human. And I think that it behooves us to keep doing these things um, within the culture we live in that says, yeah, but it doesn't have commercial value or whatever. There are other values. So take it seriously and show up and let go of perfection because it doesn't exist. It's an idea. It's not a true thing. And we all make a tremendous amount of trash. We are not making masterpieces here. Every once in a while, we're lucky and we turn out something and go, oh my goodness, that's the best thing I've ever made. Enjoy that. But the rest of it, you have to do too. It's okay. It's just stuff in the end. And
Yeah.
the one thing I tell people I mentor is nobody's going to die if you make a bad piece of art. So,
True, true.
you know,
And I think the doing the work piece is something that often gets missed.
you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People look at my photography and they're like, "Oh, all these pictures you take are wonderful." I'm like, "Yeah, you haven't seen the thousands of frames
Right.
that didn't end up
Right.
being printed and hung."
Right. Right. No, my son's a photographer, and you go through thousands and thousands and thousands of images, and your brain turns to mush, but and your eyeballs fall out, but eventually you find the ones
Yeah.
that
You know,
give you the next step forward. So, yeah. Yeah.
so who is another artist or several artists that you think we should go check out? Uh,
But currently for me, um, boy, I'm going to really screw up her name. I'm quite sure of it. I think her name is Wangechi Mutu. She has a big show at the new museum in New York right now. And I've been following her work for quite a while. It combines watercolor and collage.
hmm,
Um, and I can't remember where she was born in Africa, but it comes from from her culture where she grew up. But it's unbelievable stuff. And then I continue on a whole separate scale. I mean, this is what's so odd to me. On a almost opposite side of the spectrum from it, as I continue studying Agnes Martin, whose work is so quiet, it's barely there.
hmm,
But both of their works speak to me um, probably kind of like at different wavelengths. Wangechi's work is pretty visceral. It's very body oriented, And Agnes Martin's work was always very precisely geometric. So they're like the opposite sides of the spectrum for me, and they both speak to me. So those are the ones I'm studying the most right now. Um,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for those suggestions. Neither artist is one that I'd heard of, so I look forward for my own personal
Yeah.
piece of going to explore their work.
Yeah. I suggest, I mean, I think Wangechi Mutu we can get a really good idea about in books and online. Agnes Martin is a little bit harder until you get to be in a room with some of them.
Mm,
And I think it might have been at the Museum of Modern Art. They had set up a room of her work that she insisted be shown together. And I don't remember the title, but it was something like Santa Fe Sunrise or something. It doesn't really matter. It was all glowing in yellows. And I entered that room and I sat down and I took a deep breath and felt utterly at peace because of the way
mm,
being surrounded by it affected me. And I found that to be a really remarkable response. And I respond that with Donald Judd's work too. So in the sculpture realm.
mm.
So,
Well, I think that's a key point. We're all inundated these days with digital imagery
mm,
all the time, but when you're in the presence of the work, it takes on a very different character, and the
it does.
relationship between you, the viewer, and the work changes. It's a more intimate exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're the things that you can see in the materials that the camera won't pick up
Right.
or the printer won't. The camera might, but they might print it cheaply.
Well, yeah, there is
Yeah.
absolutely that. But
Yeah.
even a good print sometimes doesn't render what was originally there.
Yep.
And I would
Yep.
particularly think with your work and the more three-dimensional element, you're never going to get the appreciation in a photographic form. You've got to be able to move and see how
Yeah.
the light changes
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah. At least I can show the shadows. And I do.
Yeah.
So that people know that it's three dimensional. But yeah. Yeah. No, it's a whole different thing being with the work.
Mhm.
And some of my work affects people the way I described Agnes Martin affecting me. And that's part of my goal with the work is to help people just kind of slow down and go, oh, oh. And I think of it as just that little rest,
Mm.
even in the middle of the day. I mean, we're all go, 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 go. But if you have a piece that you respond to like that, say in your office, so you go, 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 but you do have 30 seconds to look up and go, okay. And then you can return to the task at hand renewed. I think I see it as healthy.
No, it's a lovely sentiment too. And probably a good practice that we should all take is to
Yeah,
stop looking at the screen and go look at something striking, something beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I do to help keep me fresh is I actually do try to take one day off a week from the studio because I would be in the studio, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, given my choices. And that's not healthy in the long run. So I just make sure that I take one day off a week, which gets screwed up sometimes because a deadline bites you in the butt. But I come back to work so much better the next day, even if I'm uncomfortable not being in the studio. So it's a Sabbath taking kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, very, very valuable insight there. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. I can't believe we've already come to the close to the end of our time, but I want to make sure that our audience knows where to check out your unique work. And all of this will be in the show notes, of course, as usual. But you've got the SusanHenselProjects.com website.
Correct.
You also have your own gallery, SusanHenselGallery.com, which is on Cedar Avenue in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as uh, our options in the cyber universe.
Yeah.
Any other places you want to route
Well,
folks to?
well, actually, if you go to artsy.net, that's where most of the Susan Hensel Gallery current work is. I have shop windows that I put artwork in, but the interior space now is my studio. So I took during the pandemic, I decided it was time to start opening the gallery again. And I represent about 5 Midwest artists and trying to get them some airplay.
Hmm.
Um, and at least one of them got picked up in California. Another one has gotten some really good sales through an art consultant out of British Columbia, I think, that I've worked with before. And we're just kind of working our way forward, trying to get the people who live in the middle of the country seen a little more.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful service
Mhm.
because I think every artist deserves to be seen.
I do too. And I don't even care what it is you make. You can make a painted rock, show it to someone. That's the point.
Yeah. Well,
Share it.
I can't claim this quote, but I have no idea where I got it originally is, but a piece of art is not finished until it is viewed.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once I heard that, I was like, ooh, yeah, I love that because the viewer brings to it their life
Yes.
experience just
Yeah.
as the artist brought their life experience.
Yes. And for the newer artists, the viewer's experience may well be way off base as far as you're concerned, but that's okay. It's their experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it
It's
bothers you a lot, then that means that you haven't directed them toward the ballpark you're working in quite as accurately as you would like. So as you work on to some of your next pieces, you can think, okay, how can I get them closer? How can I get them closer to what I'm trying to say? So there's lots of information you can get from that. But the viewer will always bring their own experiences, just like a good reader will. Reading novels is enriched by what we bring to them.
mm,
If we had not already read something else, uh, if we were reading raw with no life experience, it would be pretty dry. But being
mm,
able to bring our life experience in there and partially inhabit the characters allows us to have a great time with novels. And so that's what people are doing when they look at your artwork is my artwork, your artwork, is they're inhabiting a little bit of what you were doing, making it. And it's a rich experience.
yeah. And it's also fun for me to get insights effectively into my own work,
Yeah,
hearing what other people
yeah,
see and how it moves them.
yeah.
Um, and so there's real interplay that goes both directions.
Yeah, yeah. No, there really is. There was a large installation that I did with the help of my son. It had a video component that it would film people as they came into the space and then project it on a screen
Ah,
that had a bunch of self-portraits on it. And I called it Just Looking. And I had a script that I had some actors read. And I thought of it as being kind of malevolent, kind of creepy. People are looking at you. Ooh, ooh. And no, everybody came in and played. So it was not at all what I was expecting, but it was delightful. So people just came in and played with their images being, cast on the screen. And I went, oh, son of a gun. That's cool.
yeah, and completely ephemeral.
Yeah, completely ephemeral and absolutely not what I thought it was going to be. Not even remotely, but it was fun. So it was cool. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, this has been a real delight talking to you, Susan, getting to know a little bit about you and your process. Perhaps one day we can actually meet face to face and I can see some of your lovely work in person.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. I hope so.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Artist Spotlight podcast. Please tune in next time for another conversation with a contemporary artist. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Artist Spotlight with Chip Freund. Find accompanying blog posts at chipfreundphoto.com/blog, and you may subscribe to our show on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like listening.